What I will say is, look, there's a lot of people out there who, given the opportunity to keep this money and do something with it, is going to get spent.
That's money that could have been sitting in my high yield money market savings account earning a few $100 every month. I want to be the one maximizing my capital throughout the year, and then I'll cut you the check when it's time to cut the check.
Hey, my name is Chris Browning.
And I'm Paco de Leon.
And welcome to Our 2 Cents, where we dive into the money topics that everyone is talking about. Tax refunds. Are they good news, or is it really just like, thanks for nothing? This is, why am I even doing this? Nobody likes this. I don't, do you like this, Paco? Do you have a good time during tax season?
No, absolutely not.
Okay, just want to make sure. Yeah. Nobody likes this. The biggest thing around it and the best thing about tax season is the potential of getting a tax refund.
That's how they sell it to you, I think.
Right? Well, okay. Well, all right. This leads right into my question. Why would you be doing this? You've done something wrong if you get a big tax refund.
I think if you're getting a tax refund, that means you have given the government an interest-free loan, and that was your money to have had, but you gave it to them, and they did whatever they did with it, and they're like, oh, by the way, here's what I owe you, Chris.
Okay, well, like, could you start by breaking down like a tax refund? Like, why would someone be getting some money back from the IRS or from the state?
So the way that our tax system works is you pay into taxes as you earn them. So if any of you have had the unbridled joy of looking at your pay stub as an employee, you'll see that you get paid a gross wage, less taxes, and then you get your net pay. So you're paying into your taxes with every paycheck, but then when you file your taxes, if you're getting a refund, typically, if you're getting a refund, that means you have overpaid with your withholdings. Of course, sometimes there are tax credits, which makes our tax system just so fun and exciting, and there's all these twists and turns.
It's like a great movie, right?
Exactly. So you could be getting a refund in the form of a credit, and okay, I'm not going to fault those folks. But specifically because I run a bookkeeping agency, I work with creative businesses, I have my own entities. I get to kind of, I have more flexibility when it comes to taxes, right? I can do quarterly payments. I look at my revenue, I look at my expenses, and I just try really hard to not ever have a refund, because that means that's money that could have been sitting in my high yield money market savings account earning a few $100 every month. I want to be the one maximizing my capital throughout the year, and then I'll cut you the check when it's time to cut the check.
Okay, you're like, I'm not giving the IRS a single penny more than they need to have. And look, I was with you back in the day. Like, I feel like just recently I've started to kind of change on this a little bit. I was always like, no, like, either I'm getting nothing or I'm going to owe them just a little bit. Here's $100, you can have that. But I got to say, from like listening to other people talk to me about how they have experienced tax season and the way they look at their refund, I gotta say I'm coming around to the idea of being okay with getting a refund, even a big one.
Cool.
Because I think I said the joy and enthusiasm.
I was gonna say, why don't you write me a check? I'll hold on to it and then give it back to you, and then you could experience that joy later.
Look, I don't like this idea. I don't like where this is going. Well, look, hear me out. Look, I see what you're saying. I see the example. It's not quite the same. But what I will say is, look, there's a lot of people out there who, given the opportunity to keep this money and do something with it, is going to get spent.
That's true.
This money is not going to make it from April of 2025 to April of 2026. I can tell you that money is going to be gone. It's going to be spent. And if they were to go to their job, the HR, and be like, hey, look, I need you to take less out of my paycheck because I got this, I think it gets lost in the shuffle. And I think that's what's convinced me, is that you see so many people who they whatever, April, March, whenever they're getting a tax refund back, it is like this big event. And it's like this big like moment where they make progress on like they're saving a little bit or they pay down some debt. Now, you can argue maybe they would have had that debt if they had their money throughout the year, but let's just say they still would have had that debt. That I feel like it's this moment where they can have like a big tangible impact on their finances for once. Like, it's the one time a year where they can make a big move in whether it's saving, paying down debt, or even just doing something nice for themselves that they wouldn't normally do because it's almost like they were forced to save this. Did they earn any interest? No, but they were forced to save this money.
I mean, I get where you're coming from, but I don't like it. And I don't like it because I think it points to the larger issue that like financial literacy is low, right? And people are looking at this thing that is their money as some sort of like, turd in a box, but it's a present. You know what I mean? Not to say that money is a turd in a box, but you get where I'm coming from. It's like, I would just wish people were more financially literate so that they could, navigate these situations and really with clear eyes see it for what it is.
Now, I get your team, don't give me a refund, give me my money. But I feel like they don't make it simple enough to go through and try to find that sweet spot. Like, is there some risk if I'm like, okay, look, Paco's making some sense. I'm not going to give the IRS this free loan anymore. I'm going to go to HR tomorrow and make some changes. Now, is there a risk that they can mess this up?
Yeah, I mean, you touched on the risk earlier. The risk is, you underpay and you didn't save any extra money on the side, and come tax day, you're like, oh crap, I have to write the check, but I didn't prepare for that. So you do have to prepare. You do have to understand your tax situation in order to have saved the money, used it and leveraged it in however you were going to do that, and then have it available come tax day. You're only gonna owe what what should have been paying in on that day. Like when the interest and penalties when you start to get hit with interest and penalties, it's once you're late on your taxes. So that's the good news, I guess.
Okay, so it's like the risk is you could end up doing like maybe having not enough taken out of your paycheck, and then now you're like, oh, you gotta be ready to make some payments or do something when you file your tax return.
Exactly.
That's correct. Because if you owe and you file your tax return, what are your options for how you're going to pay that back?
You can go on a payment plan.
Okay.
So that's probably the most popular way that people deal with a higher than expected tax bill. But let me also say, I am not an accountant. I just know enough to be dangerous to myself and others.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, all right. But all right. My one other thought about all this is that I see this thing that people do where you don't make great decisions. I used to run a payroll department for years, and one thing I would see people do every year is like mainly during the holidays, they would come in there and they would do they would go exempt.
Oh, exempt.
So they don't pay any federal or state tax for like a paycheck or two. And that kind of like, they're like, well, look, I have this big refund coming, so I'm just going to eat into it. And in my mind, I'm like, these people who do these things, look, I've done it before. I'm like, hey, I could use some extra money right now. Like if you're playing it too close to that line where like, I'm not getting anything back, you may slip up and like, oh, well, actually this month I need a little extra money. And you may like do something like that could harm you when you file your taxes.
No. You made the argument for my case.
I kind of did.
Yeah, you totally did. Because what if you were withholding the correct amount every year, right? Or every month, every paycheck, then come holiday time, you shouldn't need to try to get more, like claw more back because you haven't been paying much in. In theory, I get it.
Well, you're assuming you're saving the money, the extra money.
In theory, right? In
And
theory.
that's the thing. I think there's like two groups of people, right? They're the people who like given extra money. They're going to be very responsible. They're going to, hey, I'm going to tuck this away for whatever else it is I know I'm going to need to do. And there's other people who are like, money's in my account. It's leaving. It's not meant for me. It's meant for somebody else, and I'm going to give it to them. And I think maybe that does come to the whole topic of financial literacy. You're saying like you would prefer people just learn how to do this correctly, and maybe it kind of sounds like forcing ourselves to get better at managing our money and not relying on a forced savings account from the government.
I don't want to just put the impetus on the individual, although I think even in a perfect environment of utopia, we still have to make decisions. Like the individual still bears responsibility.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do think financial literacy is important. I want people to really understand like the larger context of the system of taxes and how it all works. Because once you start to know the rules of the game, that's when you can start to push on certain areas and say, all right, I'm going to be black and white on this rule, but I'm going to, be a little loose and fast over on that rule because I have taken the time to understand what is the risk and then what is the probability that loss from that risk will occur to me, right?
Oh, yeah. No, that makes sense.
Light statistics.
Hey, so thanks for joining us here on Our 2 Cents.
And don't forget to hit us up in the comments with your 2 cents.
Yeah, and also leave us a like and make sure you subscribe to the channel.